Please be aware, in this podcast series we talk about all areas of safeguarding, which some people may find upsetting. So please make sure you're okay listening to today's topic. Be mindful of those around you, such as children, that you might not want to listen in. Hi, I'm SSS Safeguarding Director Sam Preston.
And I'm former head teacher and content author Sarah Spinks.
So today we're talking about asbestos in schools and public buildings. So you might be wondering why we've decided to cover this in the safeguarding series. After all, the fact that asbestos is dangerous, it's not news. But there's been a new report produced by the Joint Union Asbestos Committee, the JUAC, and that's raised alarming concerns regarding the potential fatal effects of asbestos in UK schools. So we decided to have a look at this. So the report, it was produced following an investigation by 8 of the teaching unions. And it makes for really worrying reading with statements. It includes statements, and I'll just quote you one of them, that says hundreds of thousands of students and staff exposed to asbestos in their schools since the mid-1990s are predicted to die from mesothelioma.
Oh, my word. I know that asbestos-containing materials, they were extensively used in the construction of many public buildings, which included schools, because of its attractive properties, formerly. Yeah. And it's very strong and it's heat resistant. But that was before the dangers of this mineral was known and banned, wasn't it, for use in the UK?
Yeah, that's right, Sarah. I mean, it was even used in other products, such as sometimes it features on these programs where they go back in time. They used to have these boxes of fake snow that you could sprinkle around on your windowsills and things and used as Christmas decorations, and it contained asbestos.
Nice.
So I think maybe, first of all, let's just kind of take a step back and look at the dangers that we know are presented by asbestos as a kind of starting point and what it is. So it's a naturally occurring mineral fibre. As you've said, Sarah, once widely used in building materials and products because of its fire resistant and it's got amazing insulating properties. However, it's now known to be extremely dangerous to human health when its fibres are inhaled. So the fibres, asbestos fibres, they're incredibly small. They come in sort of different shapes. They're either sort of like sharp, jagged things, like needles that will, shape that would pierce. Some, though, also are sharp, but they've kind of got a hook on them. So they're incredibly dangerous if inhaled because these fibres pierce organs, and the ones that have got the little hooks on them, it's very difficult to try and get these fibres out. And they're incredibly small, incredibly lightweight, and that means if they're disturbed, they're really easily airborne.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you said, once inhaled, they just get lodged deep in the lungs and they remain there for years. And interesting, they can cause a variety of things. So inflammation and scarring, over time, the body's immune system reacts to the fibres and it causes inflammation and scarring in the lung tissue. And it's obviously associated with some really serious diseases. And this damage can lead to the variety of serious health problems. That includes things like asbestosis, which is a chronic lung disease that causes scarring and makes it difficult to breathe. Lung cancer. Asbestos exposure can significantly increase the risk of developing lung cancer, especially when it's combined with smoking. And as you said earlier, mesothelioma, that's a rare but aggressive cancer that affects the lining of the lungs, abdomen and heart. And also long latency periods. The diseases caused by asbestos exposure often take many years, even decades to develop. I mean, I actually know somebody whose mum has now been diagnosed with asbestosis in her 80s, having worked somewhere and been exposed in her 40s. So it makes it really difficult to link the disease, I suppose, to past exposure. And then there's no safe level of exposure. There's no known safe level of exposure to asbestos. Even low levels of asbestos over long periods can increase that risk of developing these diseases. So it's been banned for use in many countries due to these dangers. And as I mentioned earlier, it's been banned in the UK actually since 1999.
Yeah, I mean, similarly, I had an uncle, he's sadly passed now, who was a joiner, cabinet maker, and during his lifetime, regularly had exposure, and he developed asbestosis. And it's incredibly awful disease. It really is awful. So the problem that we have now is because it was so widely used in so many public buildings, such as schools, they've got this asbestos present, which they've now got to manage.
Yeah.
So schools have to conduct asbestos surveys, and where it's found, they've got to create safe management plans.
Yeah, and where asbestos is not removed, the current advice on asbestos management is focused on what is widely thought to be the safe practice of non-disturbance.
Yeah, that's right. So school sites which have asbestos present have to ensure that it's not disturbed accidentally. And if any work that they're going to undertake, if that includes areas where the asbestos is present, then that's got to be managed by licensed companies with the necessary expertise who will take the necessary precautions.
So I know as a head teacher, so if that risk has been minimised, we all, as a head teacher, you always had to have your asbestos register, etc. Why is there so much discussion about the dangers now then?
Well, the problem is that the current practice of not disturbing, what it doesn't allow for is the release of asbestos fibres as buildings themselves naturally deteriorate. And so what we have now, the lack of investment in school construction, has led to many schools. I know you'll appreciate this. I certainly did. I worked in sites where you were really having to manage, really difficult parts of your building. So many schools are managing problematic site deterioration, and many of these buildings contain asbestos. So although all schools with recorded asbestos on site, they conduct the regular surveys to monitor the status. A survey is only as accurate as the time it's conducted. And, herein lies the problem.
Yeah.
So there can be no doubt regular surveillance and this non-disturbance policy, they are useful, but at best only serves, if we're thinking about this from a risk assessment point of view, it's only serving to try and minimise the risk. It's certainly not eliminating it.
Absolutely, I see. So this and the JUAC report, I suppose, explains why there's a national campaign launched by the Daily Mail for the creation of a national register recording every public building affected and for the safe removal of all asbestos in public buildings.
Yeah, that's right. Now, in terms of schools, the first requirement is actually easy because all schools with asbestos present, they're legally required to keep an asbestos management register, which is shared with their local authority. So that information could literally be nationally collated overnight.
Yeah, and I'm guessing that the problem, and it is a significant problem, is the removal. That would require a national rebuilding programme on an extensive scale.
Yeah, you've hit the nail on the head, Sarah, absolutely. Now, when asked to comment on this campaign, Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer said asbestos, and I quote, was an awful killer. And he added, again quoting, whatever we need to do to reduce that risk, we absolutely need to do. But despite the recent budgetary financial commitment to support schools, which is very welcome, there certainly isn't enough money currently in that pot to fund a major rebuild of the number of schools affected.
So I think it's a case of watch this space, as that campaign progresses and the inevitable debates and consultations will be carried out. So I suppose for now, what can schools do?
Well, for now, it is a case of just continuing that regular monitoring and maintaining the practice of non-disturbance.
I suppose ensure, that all staff and volunteers are aware of the dangers through training. I think that's important.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's absolutely crucial. It's so important to keep this on everybody's radar. It really is. Listeners, if you want to find out more information about training on the control and management, and that is the process, it's the control and management of asbestos. It's readily available on the SSS Learning website.